Welcome back, everybody, to Grand Old Academy Chapter 4. So we're going to start our classes to hopefully get somewhere a little interesting, because I don't know if everyone would be in the same class, but it'd be sure interesting if they were. So let's go see if we can go see more of our handsome guy. I was awakened by my alarm clock going off at 6:30 the next morning. I was immediately wide awake, fueled by adrenaline and nerves. I took a shower and got dressed in my school uniform. Grand Old Academy's uniforms were very similar to the ones I was familiar with from Japan, with the exception of the American flag pin that was compulsory for students here to wear at all times. The whole time I was preparing, Megan was still in bed with the pillow over her face, somehow still snoring despite my frantic activity. As I looked through my backpack for the 10th time, make sure I had all the right textbooks packed, the alarm of Megan's phone finally went off. She rose from her bed like a zombie, rubbing her eyes and shuffling around the room to gather her shower supplies. When I greeted her, she only groaned in response. She left the room and heard the shower. She left the room, and I heard the shower in the bathroom across the hall sputter to life. It couldn't have been more than 5 minutes later that Megan returned to the room. The transformation that she had undergone was nothing short of miraculous. Good morning, America! Ready to seize the day! She was full of her signature pep and vigor. I felt like rainbows and cartoon songbirds were about to appear around her head at any second. Her hair was somehow bouncy, shining, perfectly coiffed right out of the shower, in sharp contrast to my still damp, straight black locks. Lies. You look stunning. Oh, thank you, America. So do you. I give up on discovering the secret to Megan's morning transformation for the moment and refocus myself on the upcoming school day. Okay, I'm ready. At least I think I am. Oh no, what if I'm not? What if I got the wrong textbook list? What if... America, calm down. You'll be fine, okay? Yes, thanks. I can do this. That's the spirit. You better get going and see if you want to eat breakfast before class, right? Heart skipped a beat. Breakfast! I'd completely forgotten to schedule in time for breakfast when I planned out my morning routine last night. I briefly considered skipping breakfast and heading straight to class, but I immediately dismissed this thought. I knew my body well enough to be certain that trying to go through the morning on an empty stomach was a terrible idea. The last thing I needed was to interrupt class with a loud stomach growl. America, are you okay? I suddenly became aware that I had been standing still in frozen shock for at least 30 seconds while panicking. That was 30 fewer seconds that I now had left for breakfast. Yes, I'm fine. Gotta go. See you alone. I spat the sentence out so fast that it's practically a single word. I grabbed my backpack, swung it over my shoulder, and raced out the door. Megan poked her head out after me and waved as I sprinted down the hall. Okay. I sprinted to the stairwell at the end of my hallway, ran down it 2 steps at a time, and burst out the front doors of Sunshine Dorm. When I reached the dining hall, I had pushed my way in against a tide of students who were leaving, already done with their meals. When I got to the serving area, I was dismayed to see that it had already been picked over quite thoroughly. All that was left were a few badly bruised apples, a couple of bananas that looked several days past their prime, and damn it, some slices of toast. I sighed and resigned myself to the cliché. I snatched up some toast, turned back around, and dashed out of the dining hall. I immediately felt lost and overwhelmed the moment I set foot in Beltway Hall. There seemed to be barely any rhyme or reason to the layout of the halls. Some of them intersected at bizarre angles, making navigation even more unintuitive. I finally worked up the nerve to ask a stranger for directions. Excuse me, do you know how to find room 045? The student thought for a moment, then pointed down a nearby hallway. Thank you. I needed to ask for directions a good 4 or 5 times, and I had to double back and retrace my steps more than once. After what had must been at least 15 minutes, I finally located my homeroom. I burst in the door, my heart racing at exactly the same time that the bell rang. All eyes in the classroom were on me, and I felt my cheeks burn as I blushed. I quickly glanced around the room. The first thing I noticed was that the teacher wasn't there yet. That was one small mercy, at least. I saw that there was only one desk still unoccupied, so I rushed to it and sat down. It was near the middle of the second row, which gave me a good view of the board. As I made my way to the desk, I noticed that Newt Gingrich was sitting in the seat directly to the left of me. He waved as I sat down, and I smiled at him. Hello. Yell fart. Mere seconds after the bell, our homeroom teacher arrived. He had a friendly face with deep wrinkles, a warm smile, and a perfect head of hair. All of us stood and bowed toward him in unison. He set his briefcase down on his desk next to a small potted chrysanthemum. God damn it! Chrysanthemum! There we go. God. Plant. Mr. Reagan! Good morning. Good morning, class. Good morning, Mr. Reagan. We all sat down. I glanced around the classroom and suddenly aware that I was the target of dozens of furtive glances. Well, class, today we'll begin with a very special introduction. We're lucky enough to have a transfer student joining us for the rest of the school year, so please welcome Maury America. Mr. Reagan gestured towards me and then stepped aside, inviting me to join him by the chalkboard. Now, all pretense of politeness was dropped, and every student in the class stared straight at me as I stood and walked to the front of the classroom. Great. Aww. Hello, my name is Maury America. I wrote my name on the chalkboard both in Japanese and English. You can call me America. It's Japanese for delicate flower. I only arrived in the United States 2 days ago, but I'm very excited to be here. I'm going to do my best. Thank you. I bowed towards the student and they all applauded. As I headed back to my seat, I was surrounded by warm, welcoming smiles on all sides. Thank you, America. We'll do our best too. If you need anything, you can talk to me or your class representatives, Lindsey Graham and Peggy Noonan. Two students sitting at the row of the desks in front of me turned and waved toward me. I recognized the boy from the debate stage on Saturday night, but the girl's face was unfamiliar. Well, Peggy, will you please take attendance? Peggy finished taking attendance and Mr. Reagan started going over announcements. He congratulated Lindsay on a strong performance at the debate, and the entire class applauded in recognition. Lindsay only nodded in return. I was able to sense a sliver of resentment. Mr. Reagan continued mentioning that the next school cultural festival is coming up in 2 months and that we should start thinking about what assignments we'd like to take in preparing for it. This is another welcome point of similarity between the school and the one I had gone into in Japan. The rest of the homeroom period passed quickly. When the bell rang again, we all stood and bowed to Mr. Reagan as he picked up his briefcase, bowed in return, and left. While we were waiting for our next teacher to arrive, the students around me began to chat. Newt shifted his chair towards me. Oh God, I don't remember his voice. So what do you think of Mr. Reagan? I don't know if I've really had enough time to form a real opinion on him, but he seems fine. Newt nodded as if satisfied with my answer and turned back to his desk where he was scribbling in his notebook. Another bell, another teacher. Good morning, class. Let's get right to it. Military history. Who can tell me the date of the Battle of the Bulge? And so on. I took thorough notes in each class, but I had the sinking feeling that by transferring in so later in the year, I was hopelessly behind and might never fully catch up. Finally, it was lunchtime. When the final afternoon bell rang, all the students began to pack up their backpacks and head towards the door. But now I had yet again braved the dining hall, which brought perhaps the most difficult challenge I had yet faced at Grand Old Academy. Who to sit with at lunch? To my absolute relief, I saw a familiar, welcoming face as soon as I entered the cafeteria with my tray of food. Meg, come over here! I saved you a seat! I weaved through the sea of students over to Megan's table and sat beside her. There were two boys already sitting at the table, and Megan introduced me to them. America, this is Chris Wallace and Brett Mayer. The three of us are the leaders of Fox and Friends. It's an after-school culture club where we discuss debates in the student government. Chris and Brett, me and America, my new friend. Not my new roommate, but rather my new friend. This seemingly trivial word choice meant the world to me. Hello, it's nice to meet you. Same. Welcome to the Grand Old Academy. Thank you. After the introductions, the three of them went back to the conversation. It was about what else? Saturday's debate. I shouldn't have let Donald grab so much stage time. It's my fault that he's still in the running. Come on, Chris. You know that's not true. Maybe, but still, Megan promised me that you'll do better when you moderate March's debate, okay? Don't worry, I'm already strategizing about how to handle Donald. I hope you don't think we're biased, America. We aren't trying to promote any specific debater at the expense of others. Right, exactly. We just want the best debater to win. But whoever that tomato ends up being,
It's not Donald.
Chris and Brett nodded in agreement. I smiled, but I couldn't help wondering if they were setting themselves up for inevitable failure. It seemed like the more negative attention they gave Donald, the more he was able to thrive on stage. So, America, have you thought about joining an after-school club yet? No, not yet. Right now I'm focusing on my classes and adjusting to this new school and new country, you know? Excuse me. Fair enough, but when you're eventually ready to look into clubs, I hope you'll give some fair and balanced consideration to Fox and Friends. I'll do that, thanks. After a bit more conversation, the two boys said they had to head to the next class. They took off, leaving me and Megan alone. These seem nice. I sometimes wish they'd take our club a bit more seriously, but still, they're good kids. So tell me about our classes. What do you think of the teachers? Who's in your home? Megan's eyes are glittering with a familiar curiosity and passion again as she peppered me with questions. She hung on every word as I summarized my day to her, as if it was the most interesting thing she had heard in weeks. Soon enough, Megan and I both had to head out to our next classes. We waved goodbye to each other after we dropped off our plates and silverware, and then went our separate ways. My next class is chemistry, which was held in a lab room on the 3rd floor of Beltway Hall. Once again, finding the classroom was a trial in and of itself, but fortunately, I had allowed myself enough time to search, and I made it before the bell rang. When I got to the lab, students were milling around and chatting. There were half a dozen tables around the perimeter of the room, each one mounted with nozzles for Bunsen burners and situated near a cabinet of glassware. I know some students taking seats at one table, then began waving over to the other side of the room by friends and relocating. This class didn't have assigned seating, I gathered. I made my way to the only table that was still completely empty and took a seat. I could feel myself getting glances from the students who hadn't been in my previous class with me, but after seeing how easily the students in my homeroom had warmed up to me, I didn't feel too nervous. I even felt bold enough to meet the eyes of a few of them and give them small smiles and waves. They smiled back, but still, none of them seemed eager to sit by the new girl until... Hi there! I turned to look at the student who had just stealthily slid into the seat beside me. When I realized who it was, I almost gasped. It was Marco. He looked even more handsome. He looked even more handsome up close than he had from the audience of the auditorium or across the lawn of Sunshine Dorm. His perfect skin, his dreamy eyes, the incredible smile that seemed to have its own gravitational pull. Marco! That's me. He flashed his trademark smile at me. I heard all the girls nearby let out small wistful sighs. Figured it was about time I properly introduced myself, being your RA and all. So consider this my introduction. Hi. He extended his hand towards me and shook it. His skin was soft as it looked, even if it was a little sweaty. Hi. I'm America. Thank you for being my RA, for advising me residently. I wasn't normally the type to be this overwhelmed by a handsome boy. So nice to me, but then again, I couldn't remember ever meeting a boy quite as handsome as Marco. No. You're very welcome, America, and if you ever need one-on-one advising from me, residentially or otherwise, my room's just down the stairs from yours. Drop in any time, day or night. Thank you. My knees felt wobbly. I was certain that I was blushing heavily. My face is red, but not because I'm laughing and not because I'm blushing. I could practically feel the jealousy of the other girls in the classroom washing over me in waves. A few more of Marco's smiles in my direction. I was afraid that I might drown in that jealousy. While I was staring into Marco's eyes, I heard someone else slide into the seat on the other side of me. I reluctantly broke Marco's gaze and turned to see who it was. I hope it's Donald. I hope it is. I just want to... Oh, yes. Oh. It's Ted. Hello. I couldn't keep myself from crying out in shock at the sudden contrast. On my left sat the embodiment of physical perfection, and on my right sat I'm Ted. Can I sit here? I guess so. I'm America. It's nice to meet you, Ted. Ted nodded, then he leaned forward to look past me and wave. Hi, Marco. Marco didn't return his greeting. Instead, he just scoffed in apparent disgust. Oh, that's so sad. All the warmth I had previously felt emanating from Marco suddenly evaporated in the presence of his bejeweled foil. So you're America, the new girl, huh? That's exciting. Is it? Ted nodded, breathing heavily and loudly. I forced back a shudder. Before the situation could get any stranger, the classroom bell rang, and a tall man with frizzy white hair and thick, bald-rimmed glasses strode into the classroom. Mr. Goldwater. Good afternoon, class. We stood and bowed as the teacher took his place at the front of the classroom behind a desk, unadorned except for a single daisy in a vase. As you can tell, we have a new student. I started to scoot my chair backwards, getting ready to stand and introduce myself. But we're not going to let that distract us from our studies, are we? So everyone say hello to America and then we'll just move on. I self-consciously scooted my chair back in as a chorus of Hello Americas rang through the classroom. I was a little surprised to realize that I had been looking forward to the ceremony of introducing myself to this new class, but I had to admit that Mr. Goldwater had a point. We were there to learn, not make social visits. In my heart, I knew he was right. The first half of the class period was filled with boring slideshow presentation. When Mr. Goldwater flipped the lights back on, we all cringed like nocturnal lemurs brought into the sunlight for the first time. My eyes. Are lemurs nocturnal? Now, everyone, partner up with the student next to you to complete this worksheet on nuclear fission. I quickly glanced to my left and then to my right. Ted, Marco, and I were the only three at our table. Oh no! I have to pick one! What do you say, America? I want to partner with good old Ted? Before I could answer, Marco jumped in. Oh no! Or she could be my partner instead. I think we'd be a great team, America. Oh no! I don't know. Well, you asked first, but he's weird, and obviously the character doesn't like him. And then Marco, this is so hard, because Ted in real life actually got to elections. And Marco is the Senate. I don't know. What the hell is the better of the two, I guess? Yeah, I think so too, Marco. Let's do it. Marco flashed a dazzling, toothy smile at me and then turned to Ted. Sorry, pal. Good luck finding someone who's willing to put up with you. Oh, no, this is so horrible. I feel so bad. It makes me want to barf and not play this game anymore. A pathetic frown formed in Ted's face, the sides of his mouth slowly sliding downward like butter in a hot pan. I'm so sad. I'm so sorry, Ted. Forgive me. Don't kill me. He grabbed his backpack, stood, and slouched to the center of the room. It looked like nobody was in a hurry to partner up with him. I felt a little bad for... Fuck, man, I should have picked him. Because I could always be friends with Marco. I don't know, I should just be friends with everyone. I feel like I fucked up, but it's done. The choices have been made. Poor guy. Maybe I should have taken him up on his offer. He looks so sad. No, trust me, you're better off not getting involved, Ted. The guy's a total weirdo. No one in the academy can stand him. Sorry I'm starting us off on the wrong foot. I'm not actually a negative guy, I swear. It's just that Ted tends to bring out the worst in people. Okay. I felt a little bit better. Not really, because I still feel bad, even if he is a so-called bad person. Now let's get started on that worksheet. Marco flipped on his broad smile again, and I was instantly ready to forgive him for his insults towards Ted. If I didn't know better, I'd say that there is something magical, somehow hypnotic about that smile of his. But no, it wasn't anything supernatural. He was just that damn handsome. God. Why don't you just go marry him then? Marco reached into his backpack and pulled out his chemistry textbook, a notebook, and a water bottle. He took a quick swig of water, flipped through the notebook until he found the right page, and then sipped his water again. Damn it. He must have noticed me watching him drinking because he pointed at his water bottle and winked. Gotta stay hydrated, right, America? Keeps your skin looking young. That's chemistry. Wouldn't that be biology? I was just about to say that. Marco only winked again at me in response. Who needs a brain when you got looks? Speaking of looking young, you're a first year, right? That's right. How did you get into this chemistry class then? The syllabus says that's for second years and up. I was in the entry to chemistry class with all the other first years last semester, but it was too easy for me. Probably because I have such good chemistry with everybody. He waved at us to across the room. He was looking our direction. Her eyes rolled back in her head as she sighed blissfully. I can't do that. Anyway, I mentioned it to my buddy Jeb, and he got me transferred up to this class. It's a little unconventional, but Jeb's got plenty of pull with the administration because of his name. His name? What do you mean? A small frown darted across Marco's face for a fleeting second, but was quickly replaced by his go-to smile. It's not important. Jeb doesn't really like to talk about it, so forget I mentioned it. I found it endearing how protective he was of Jeb. So Jeb's your shoot. What's the English word for senpai? Oh, he's a senpai. Senpai? Never mind. I'll explain it to you later. Maybe there wasn't a word in English for it all, but Jeb and Marco were clearly in a classic senpai-kohai relationship. I could spot one a mile away. Marco opened his textbook to the relevant chapter. One glance at it told me that I was hopelessly out of my depth. I wasn't eager to have Marco, an apparent chemistry prodigy, find out how little I knew. So I tried to engage in some more small talk, hoping that Marco would do most of the worksheet himself while chatting with me. Sneaky, sneaky. Nice weather, right? I suppose so. How about I do the odd questions and you do the even ones? Small talk honestly wasn't working. Maybe I could try a topic that Marco seemed more interested in. Himself. So, when's your birthday? May 28th. Hey, that's shortly after mine. I'm a Gemini. And I'm not. So we can't, there's nothing there. Why do you ask? Are you planning on getting me a special present because I live right next to you? Well, if I am, it should be a surprise, right? This tactic seemed to be succeeding. I decided to press on. So you'll be turning 17 and... What? What? If you're first year, you must be 16 now, right? Don't worry about that. Here, let's focus on the worksheet. Why do you avoid his age? Well, I'm 18, and so are all the other third years, which would make you... No, I'm 18 too, really. Marco seemed quite uncomfortable for the first time in our conversation. He took a long gulp of water. So that'll make you 20 when you graduate from high school? That doesn't sound right. Let's drop it, okay? When a neutron strikes the nucleus of an unstable molecule, and that's when it hit me. Oh, the age of consent is higher in the United States than it is in Japan, isn't it? The molecule undergoes nuclear fission in a process which produces... Got it, you're 18. I gave him a small wink. Buddy. Gotta keep this game legal, right? Oh, that's funny. We're already on thin ice, what with all these likenesses. Good thing that parody is covered by fair use legislation. Right? Why do nuclei have new atoms, free neutrons, and energy? Marco was frantically filling out the entire worksheet himself, trying to avoid eye contact with me. Just as planned. But as I continued to watch him, I started to feel a little guilty. His brow was covered in sweat, and he looked genuinely uncomfortable. I fucked it up! I felt I was getting a window of insight into Marco's personality. It seemed to me like when he was on his game, he was unflappable and apparently perfect. But as soon as he was thrown off his groove, threw off my groove. I'm sorry, but you threw off the Emperor's groove. He crumpled into a nervous mess. When a neutron strikes the nucleus of an unstable molecule, the molecule undergoes nuclear fission, a process which produces lighter nuclei of new atoms, free neutrons, and energy. Hadn't he just said that exact sentence? Are you okay, Marco? Marco looked up from the worksheet and smiled at me. Of course I am, America. When a neutron strikes the nucleus of an unstable molecule, the molecule undergoes nuclear fission, a process which produces lighter nuclei of new atoms, free neutrons, and energy. That's chemistry. Okay. Yeah, that was definitely the same sentence 3 times now. Now, I was the one feeling uncomfortable. Okay, so we can apologize for making him nervous or change the subject. I don't know. In real life. Okay, what did I do if I made someone uncomfortable? Probably apologize, so let's apologize. I'm sorry, Marco. Sorry for what? For talking about your age, I guess. That's what made you nervous in the first place, right? Nervous? I'm not nervous. Now let's get back to work. Okay, repeats it again. I sat in uncomfortable silence as Marco finished up the worksheet by himself, frequently drinking from his water bottle and wiping sweat from his brow. Oh, I feel so bad now. I'm messing up all my relationships. When the bell rang, Marco darted to the front of the classroom and turned in our worksheet. Unfortunately for both of us, he had been so distracted that he'd left several answers completely blank. Dang it! As he walked back, surrounded once again by the adoring stares of his admirers, he seemed to regain his mojo, and the swagger came back into his step. By the time he returned to the table, he was back to his usual self. Piece of cake, right, America? We should partner up again next time. We have great chemistry. Even though he had made that joke earlier in this class period, I still couldn't help but swoon. Damn, that seductive smile of his. Marco tossed his books and water bottle into his backpack, slung it over one shoulder, and headed out the classroom. Just before he walked through the door, he turned his back for a moment and winked at me. The happy warmth I felt in my chest was more than enough to protect me from the daggers that the other girls in class were shooting at me from their eyes. After the last class of the day, we all returned to our homerooms. Mr. Reagan read a few more announcements and reminded us again that the next school cultural festival would be held on April 30th. My curiosity was piqued, but unfortunately Mr. Reagan didn't specify what the festival's theme was. It seemed like he was taking for granted that all the students in his class already knew, and judging by the excitement whispers that filled the room when he mentioned the festival, he was right. At least Mr. Reagan dismissed us. He stood and bowed as he left the room. Once he left, all of us began cleaning the classroom. Once again, I felt comforted knowing that Osoji was a cultural constant. My chore for this week, as assigned by Newt during his announcements this morning, was cleaning the chalkboard. Not particularly hard, but fairly time-consuming. As other students finished up their chores, they left the room in pairs and trios, chatting about what after-school clubs they were on their way to. I wondered what club I would end up joining. Fox and Friends did sound interesting, but I wasn't sure if it was right fit for me. Maybe there was a light novel club here, like the one I belonged to at my old school. I decided that I'd ask around about that later. Excellent job, America. I don't think I've ever seen the chalkboard that clean. Oh, thank you, Newt. I'm heading up to my after-school class, the RNC. RNC? It stands for Really Neat Club. Just really neat. Come join. Would you like to come along? It's really neat. No, I don't think so. I don't want to intrude. But thank you for the invitation. Of course. Newt smiled at me and then left the classroom. I grabbed my backpack and left as well, heading back to Sunshine Dorm. I returned to an empty dorm. Presumably, Megan was at a Fox and Friends meeting. I unpacked my backpack and flopped onto my bed. I started working on my homework for Mr. Eisenhower's military history class. Mr. Eisenhower didn't have the same warmth and approachability that Mr. Reagan did, but he was still a good teacher. I liked Ike. Ooh. A few hours later, I heard the sound of a key in the door and Megan entered. Marco, you did it! You're first at the academy! Yep, I did it. Megan's enthusiasm was infectious. I suddenly felt myself swelling with pride. I had been spending all day trying to calm my nerves by telling myself that my first day of classes here wasn't a big deal. But no, it was a big deal, and I had conquered it. Megan and I spent the next few minutes dissecting the classes I had gone to since I last saw her at lunch. Eventually, Eventually, I returned to my homework and Megan started on hers. When dinner rolled around, Megan invited me to eat with her again. I happily accepted her offer. We chatted about this and that for a while, but eventually the conversation turned to ourselves. So America means delicate flower in Japanese, but what about the other half of your name? What does Mori mean? It doesn't mean anything particular, not literally at least. It does have a lot of history to it. It goes back to the 12th century. Wow! It's not like I can trace my personal lineage all the way back to the founder of the Mori clan or anything like that, but yeah, I guess it's neat. I mean, I'm still a continent away from her. She's on the East Coast, and the academy is obviously near the center of the country. But it's better than being on the other side of the globe. Wow, I'm roommates with Ambassador's daughter. I'm so lucky. It's not that big of a deal. It's not like I'm anything special just because she is. Are you kidding, America? You were accepted into Grand Old Academy. That means you absolutely are special. I guess. I'm serious! You're gonna make your mark on the academy! I can feel it! I couldn't help but smile a bit. It felt good knowing that Megan had so much confidence in me, even if I didn't have that much in myself. After dinner, we returned to our room and worked for the rest of the night until bed. Alright guys, so I'm gonna end it there. So we got to see a little bit into Marco's true personality. He's a fraud. Yeah, he has some demons, but who doesn't? So I'm excited to see if this game goes on further, a little bit more in the demo, which I hope it does. I hope, more interesting stuff happens. I mean, the dialogue between the character and the political characters is really silly. It's a little traumatizing, but anyways, thank you so much for tuning in again, and I'll see you in chapter 4.